Okay, hello everybody. Hopefully you can hear us and see us. Trying new streaming software this week using OBS instead of XSplit because I don't want to pay for XSplit anymore. And OBS is free. So this might be a little rocky. Or it might go great. We just don't know. Hopefully you can hear us. Please do let us know in the chat that if you can hear us. Dan, say hello so they can hear you as well.
Hello. Yes.
Hopefully you heard him say that. If you didn't, please put it in the chat. I'm hoping it's all
I'm
working.
still doing the social stuff.
No worries, we can start in a sec. Podcast is back. Yes.
I didn't tag us. Sorry.
That's all right. I don't care. Nobody uses X anymore anyway.
It's true.
Are you socialing on all of the platforms or just Twitter?
No, I'll put it on Blue Skies too.
On this blue sky. And yes, we can hear both of us. Brilliant. I'm so glad that worked.
Because I'll tag us.
Sorry, go on.
Tag us.
Okay.
Blue Skies.
Hopefully that's still looking good. Welcome back. Thank you. Yeah, we do intend to do this more regularly in 2025. For sure. It will go back to being weekly and live on YouTube. So there'll be a set time every week. I'll be here and somebody will be joining me to do this show. This will probably be the last one of 2024 because I don't think we're going to need to come to reconvene to talk about anything until the end of the year. But yeah, it will be back to a regular schedule in 2025. I can promise you that because it's on one of my SMART goals. So I have no choice. No, I want to do it. I want to do it. I like doing
too many windows open.
I like doing the podcast. It was a shame we couldn't do it more often this year. It's just everyone was so busy, and Dan especially. Dan's just like he's always busy now. He barely has time to write, so which is why we're getting our the plan is to have like a rotating cast because Dan's just not around as often anymore.
And I hate talking.
He hates talking until he starts talking, and then he loves it.
It is true. It's annoying. I find myself annoying. Okay. Right. I am now recording.
I'm now recording.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 351 for December 6th, 2024. Hey, everyone. Dan Rubino here, joined again with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. It's been 2 months since we've done one. We were just chatting with the audience about why that is. So we'll just quickly mention that as well. We've just been exceptionally busy, a lot of changes going on internally with Windows Central, nothing big, but just a lot of news that's been covered. I'm busy all the time. I'm traveling, I'm managing and doing all this stuff. And so it's just been a little rough. That said, we do have plans for 2025 to make this a lot more regular. I don't know if I'll be joining every single podcast. Instead, we'd like to bring on some of our other staff and other guests to help make it a little bit more interesting, possibly give me a break too, and make it more consistent for everyone who likes to tune in. I'll also say 2025 is going to be a really big year for Windows and PC, and of course AI. It was like that for 2024 too, but there's a couple of things happening in 2025, which I guess before we get to the exact news part, I'll just kind of summarize. But there is, and I'm saying I'm giving previews here. I'm getting pre-CES, CES briefings, so a lot of stuff that's going to be announced. I can tell you this is going to be a very big CES for Windows and laptops and PCs and gaming and all that kind of stuff. And just to put that in perspective, a couple of years ago, I didn't even go to CES. And this is like in the late 2018, maybe around there. There just wasn't a lot happening. And a lot of the laptop companies and PC companies announced their stuff at other events. And so there just wasn't a lot, and once Microsoft pulled out of CES, right, there just wasn't a lot there. That's changed now. The amount of stuff that's going to be announced is really impressive. And it's from all the major, companies. And it's a lot. I'm almost not looking forward to covering it. But I am looking forward to revealing it because there is some massive innovation that's going on in the laptop space. And we're rapidly approaching I mean, we're kind of already there, I would say, with the Qualcomm stuff and like a Surface Pro 11 for myself, the ideal PC. I'll just say everything that's happened in 2024 is just going to get significantly even better in 2025 and going to 2026. I've seen some technology that kind of blew my mind. It's really impressive. It's going to be really game changing for, I'll just say, laptops. But all the companies are doing some really crazy things. So really looking forward to next year. Yeah,
I'd say the biggest CES news is that I'm going for the first time.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, in fact, right. Yeah, we have 4 people going to CES, which is a first. I think there was one year it was just me. So now, to be fair, a lot of the stuff we get embargoed and it's behind the scenes, right? So it's not as much like that we're going to this event blind and not knowing what's happening. Instead, it's, we're going there and just getting extra coverage while the team back home is posting stuff. But yeah, and I haven't really even mentioned AI, right? AI, of course, is the big buzzword of 2024. There's still a lot of people who are like, yeah, but it doesn't seem like it's not doing much right now, and it's maybe a fad. And I'll tell you, it's definitely not. I do agree with the what do I do with it, perspective. But this gets back to even something I heard Dell say recently, and it was just like, I remember having a laptop without Wi-Fi, and then I remember Wi-Fi coming out. And the question is like, all right, so you're technically paying a little bit more for that. You're going to get a laptop with Wi-Fi, but there were like no Wi-Fi hotspots. No one had Wi-Fi. There was like a lot of people didn't have internet connections, right? And they definitely weren't public, and you didn't go to a coffee shop. So the question was like, well, why should I get Wi-Fi in a laptop? Because there's nothing to do with it. And for a while, that was absolutely true. But over years, that improved. And now there's Wi-Fi like literally everywhere, right? This happened with GPUs too. Before you just had onboard graphics, and then someone was like, let's make a separate GPU that just handles all that stuff. But you get that hardware. It's like, all right, well, what game makes use of this hardware, right? And that took a while too. And so that's what the deal with NPUs right now. They're in the hands of people increasingly, still small amounts comparatively, but they're increasing. And as that number grows, you'll see developers start to target their software for it. And we'll see more and more of this stuff happen. So I'll just say have a little patience, but this stuff does take time. But anyway, with that introduction, I guess we'll just jump into the news. Unless, wait, Zach, should I ask you how you're doing? I usually do ask.
No, because I'm doing terribly. No, I'm joking. I'm great. Thanks for asking.
Very convincing.
Let's just dive straight into it, I guess.
Yeah. Surface Studio 2 Plus is dead.
Let's start with depressing news, shall we?
Yes. So, not a surprise, though.
No, I was going to say
this
is probably the most unsurprising news of the week. Only because I kind of heard that this was the case when the news broke that Microsoft sort of cut back on the Surface portfolio to begin with, but now it's sort of like harsh reality because Microsoft confirmed to us today that the Surface Studio 2 Plus is done. Production is basically has ended on the Surface Studio 2 Plus, which means the remaining stock that's out there, whether it be in your region or not, that's all that's left. And in a lot of regions, it's already out of stock. So they will not be, restocking the device with new units. They might still be refurbished units because Microsoft sometimes does sell refurbished devices. And so the Studio 2 Plus may come through there. But in regards to new Surface Studio 2 Pluses, it's done. And that's unfortunate because it doesn't look like there's a successor imminent. I think the Surface Studio was one of those product lines alongside the Surface Duo and the Surface earbuds and headphones and mice and all the other stuff that got cut last year. That's sort of what led Panos to leave in the first place. And the Studio is one of those products by the looks of things. So I'll read the statement here and we can move on from that. Microsoft said customers can continue to purchase Surface Studio 2 Plus through retailers and partners with stock. For areas reaching out of stock, Surface Studio 2 Plus will no longer be available for new purchases. And so, yeah, if you are somebody who is looking to buy a Surface Studio 2 Plus, I don't know why you would be in this current year. It's a device that already launched with the last gen CPU, so it's definitely out of date now. I think it's 11th gen, right? It's an 11th gen Intel laptop processor with an RTX 3060, I want to say. It's not great for the price you pay, which, by the way, to remind everybody, is $4,500.
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand, and we talked about this before, of course, that the price of Surface Studio, everything about it is for that display, which, while the internal hardware is regrettable, to say the least, if you ever seen one in person, it really is an incredible display. I mean, it is just like, there's really nothing else like it still. So
yeah. I'm sad about it because I daily drove both the Studio 1 and Studio 2 for a number of years. I never made the jump to the Studio 2 Plus. I just couldn't justify that price jump. It was because I got both the Studio 1 and Studio 2 at discount, and the Studio 2 Plus just wasn't on discount. It was basically only for businesses, right? I think they might have sold a consumer version, but it was a product that they refreshed for businesses. That's why they did the 2 Plus, because they just weren't bothered with doing a Studio 3. I mean, I know they were working on one, which would have probably come probably this year or next year, but yeah, that to my knowledge, that's no longer happening because Microsoft has scrapped the Studio line alongside the Duo and stuff, which is a shame. But I think that leads us a little bit nicely into our sort of next topic, which is what are we expecting to see next from Surface? This is kind of what we do at the end of every year. We take a look at the year ahead, chat with some sources, figure out if we can figure out what Microsoft is planning to bring to market in the next year. And so just to recap this year, I guess, Surface this year was all about Surface Laptop and Surface Pro. Those were the only product lines, to my knowledge, if my memory serves correctly, those are the only surfaces Microsoft updated. And they updated them twice in the same year, which I don't think they've ever done before, except the Surface Pro, which technically got a Pro 1 and Pro 2 in January and September 2013, I think it was, something like that. But outside of that, this is the first time we've ever seen Microsoft update the same product line twice in 1 year. And they did that because they sort of split the launches in two, right? They had the commercial only launch in March, which was the Surface Pro 10 and the Surface Laptop 6. Those featured the old school Surface Laptop and Surface Pro designs. Actually, technically, the Pro 10 had the new design with the rounded display corners, but the Laptop 6 had the old Laptop 5 design, which is the Laptop 4, Laptop 3. It's the same design. They had Intel Core Ultra 1 processors, which means they were just cut off from the Copilot Plus PC stuff. They were technically AI PCs. I believe Microsoft were branding them as such, but they were not Copilot Plus AI PCs, which is a big difference. The Copilot Plus stuff is important, and that's getting all the new features. Normal AI PCs are getting nothing. So that includes the Laptop Studio 2, which launched 6 months before that, unfortunately. But the Laptop 6 Pro 10, they were for business only, anti-reflective screens, card reader, and Intel. That was basically that. And then 2 months later, we got the Copilot Plus services, the Pro 11 and the Laptop 7. The Laptop 7 had the new design with thinner bezels, of course. It had a haptic trackpad. The Pro got an OLED screen, which is awesome. The new Flex keyboard, and of course, Snapdragon X on the inside. Those were the big sort of hero. These are the devices for everyone products. And that sort of went kind of well. Of course, the Windows recall debacle kind of shook the boat a little bit. But outside of that, in regards to the Snapdragon X platform itself, it's been great. I've been daily driving a Snapdragon X device ever since, and it might be the best product I've ever purchased in regards to buying a Windows device. And so that leads us to now. So what is coming next? Well, I think it's fair to say that we're going to see Microsoft bring Copilot Plus to more of the Surface line, right? It makes sense. The current active Surface portfolio will be getting Copilot Plus. It doesn't make sense to not bring Copilot Plus to the rest of the Surface lineup. Now, what is the Surface lineup going into 2025? This is a great question. We will get into that in a second, but we'll start with the first two that I'm definitely expecting to show up quite soon, actually, probably January or February. And that's the Surface Pro and Surface Laptop. Again, Microsoft will have refreshed the Surface Pro and Surface Laptop 3 times in the span of 12 months by the time we're done with this refresh cycle. We're getting Surface Pro and Surface Laptop with Intel Core Ultra Series 2, Intel Lunar Lake, which will bring those Intel-based business laptops and tablets into the Copilot Plus fold. Up until now, the only Copilot Plus services are ARM-powered, but that will change starting early next year with Intel Lunar Lake. I don't expect too much to change on the surface with these devices, to be honest. I was kind of half hearing that maybe there was a Surface Pro redesign on the way. If that's still coming, I don't think it's coming in early January. I think that's probably going to be saved for the X2 Elite, which is coming 2026, I guess, or late 2025. And so I wouldn't expect to see a new Surface Pro and laptop with those chips until sometime in 2026. And that may be when a new Surface Pro redesign comes. Who knows? It's up in the air. But regarding what's coming in 2025,
I gotta disagree a little bit with that timeline. And this is what I'm kind of curious about. I think a lot of OEMs, and I'm getting kind of insight into this, it's kind of really interesting, right? We have Intel, AMD, and now Qualcomm is a serious player. And there's still a lot of Qualcomm laptops coming, right? This wasn't like where we had it in the past, where all right, we got 2 this quarter, maybe we'll get another 1 next quarter. Like they're really going hard with this, these Snapdragons, and I'm saying more, or a lot more are coming. So I'm curious. You mentioned these are getting Lunar Lake, so they're switching from Qualcomm back to Intel. But I do expect the Gen 2 stuff to come actually possibly next summer from Qualcomm. So then I wonder, are they just going to switch back and offer that as well? Because like what I'm hearing from a couple of OEMs is that they're keeping like the chassis the same, and they're basically offering different processor options. Not all the time, but like if you look at Dell with the XPS 13, their flagship laptop, you can get an Intel version, which has been updated now to the Series 2 Intel. And you can get it with the Qualcomm version. And it depends which one you want. And Lenovo does some of this too. Asus has a couple laptops that are basically the same, that 1 week Copilot. They have one that's actually, you can get a Copilot AMD or Intel. So they're getting kind of, some of that is going to be customer choice. Some of that is market decisions too. So only some markets will get it. But I don't know. I feel like I could see this, a Surface Pro or a laptop getting the new Qualcomm chip, pretty quickly next year too, before 2026.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think because the January Surface or the February Surface Pro won't change the design, I don't think there's any rush to. I mean,
well, are they going to call it Pro 12 and Laptop 8?
I don't. I don't know. I think honestly, if I had to put money on it, I would guess it's still going to be the Laptop 7 and Pro 11 just with Intel. That's what I would assume. Actually, no, yeah, that's what I would assume because the designs are supposed to be the same. So let's actually get into what I'm hearing is different with these Intel versions. So basically what I'm hearing is going to happen is they're basically going to bring over some of the commercial focused stuff that they did with the Laptop 6 and the Pro 10, including the card reader in the Laptop 6 that's coming to the technically the chassis of the Laptop 7 with Intel Lunar Lake. And then I've also heard that they're going to actually possibly introduce a 5G version of the Surface laptop for the first time, which I know Dan's been hoping they'll do for a while. So
yeah, that could be quite. If it only had Alcantara.
They took Alcantara.
I'm a hardcore Surface laptop. Yeah. Yeah, my hunch is I think you're right. I think they're going to this is a refresh for Surface Pro 11 and Surface Laptop 7.
I think so.
I think the Pro 10 and Laptop 6 were anomalies as a holdover for commercial. I do wonder if they're going to position these as more commercial devices, because that's how they've been kind of dividing it up, because Intel still has this vPro stuff and they're more compatible with some networks. That's changing a bit, but that's still the general focus of that. And so maybe it'll be a refresh and it'll be like what we've seen before, aimed more at commercial, but anyone could still technically buy it.
I fully agree.
And then I could see the Pro 12 and Laptop 8 coming late next summer, fall-ish with the new Qualcomm chip. And that's like the next gen of that.
Yeah, I think that timeline makes a lot more sense than the January, February devices being the next gen ones with same design. I think that does make sense, especially if you're not going to include the X Elite and the ARM stuff, because it sends the wrong message. If you just do this big ARM push and then suddenly 6 months later you appear to change tracks and go back to Intel, that doesn't work unless you market them as, oh, these are just updates to the existing line. We're going to do a big bang new release later in 2025.
And I don't know. Yeah, when it comes to like performance, there's no real story to tell. They're not. The new Intel chips are good. I don't know if they're significant. I got to check the benchmarks. I have a couple, but I don't know if they're significantly faster. No. I think on single core maybe or something like that. But and same with battery life, I think Qualcomm is still going to win out there. So it's like it's a tough argument to be like check out the new Intel. It's about the same performance and slightly worse battery life, but it's anti-reflective. So that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I think that there is no story to tell because technically, let's be real, the Intel Link devices will be worse than what the current versions are. Technically, on paper, I don't think they beat the Qualcomm ones as a whole package. Although technically the NPU is more powerful on the Intel Link, I think. Not that that really matters once you've hit that 40 TOPS threshold. But yeah, so that's sort of what I'm hearing in regards to Surface Laptop, Surface Pro. Another refresh, this time with Intel Lunar Lake. And this is, like Dan said, it's mostly for commercial customers who need Intel, right? These are the people who, for whatever reason, have apps or peripherals that won't run on ARM, or at least don't currently run on ARM. And so these devices will be for them. But if you are an end user / consumer, you can go and buy these when they launch in February or March, whenever it may be. So those are the first two devices I know that are coming in 2025. The next one I know is coming at some point in 2025. I don't know if it'll be at the same time as the Laptop Pro. It might be later in the year. Is a new Laptop Studio 3, let's call it. I doubt they'll call it anything else. The last time that device got updated was in 2022, I want to say. No, late 2023. It was Intel 13th Gen RTX 40 series GPUs. And as I just mentioned, it was just cut off. It didn't get the Copilot Plus stuff. It has an NPU, but I think it's a really low-end NPU, like a 9 TOPS or 10 TOPS, something like that. So it doesn't get Copilot Plus stuff. But I do hear that the Laptop Studio 3 will be updated with Intel Lunar Lake, just like the Pro and laptop, along with RTX graphics of some kind. I don't know when RTX 50 series is supposed to be coming, but I'm assuming if that comes early 2025, it will probably be in the Laptop Studio 3 come summer / fall, assuming that's when that device rolls out. I don't know too much else about the Laptop Studio 3 yet, other than the fact that I've heard that there may be a 16-inch variant. I didn't include that in the article. That's a podcast exclusive. But I've heard that there's a 14-inch one, as always, and then there may be a 16-inch one, assuming it doesn't get cancelled, or hasn't already been cancelled. It may have been. That would be nice to see, because obviously that matches what Apple's doing with the MacBook Pro and the MacBook. So yeah, the MacBook Pro, the 14 and 16-inch. And then we've also already got the laptop with the 13 and 15-inch, right? So basically copying Apple there, which would be quite nice. Now, if we move on to the Go stuff, technically, so this is where things get a bit confusing, because I've heard that Microsoft is working on a new 11-inch Surface device of some kind. I don't know currently what form factor this will take, because my sources have been sort of all over the place in regards to what it is and describing it. So I'll do my best to describe it to you, and we can try and figure it out together. But I've heard they're working on an 11-inch Surface Go / Laptop Go hybrid with premium materials. So I don't know if it's supposed to be a Go product, but sources have described it as, think of the size of the Surface Laptop Go and the Surface Go. Combine those as an idea, and that's the product. I genuinely don't know what that could be. But this device, I'm told, will have an 11-inch or roughly 11-inch screen with a Snapdragon X Plus SoC powering things under the hood. My thought is that this is going to be like a mini Surface Pro, like an 11-inch Surface Pro, perhaps with a more rigid keyboard, maybe like the Magic Keyboard on the iPad Pro. This is complete speculation. This is not what I've heard from sources. I'm just trying to guess what this could be at this point. Something along those lines, like a hybrid between the Go and the laptop, right? What could that be? That's also smaller than the 13-inch laptop, but bigger than the current Surface Go. Could be an 11-inch Surface Pro kind of device, or maybe like a new baseline Surface laptop. Maybe it doesn't detach. Maybe it has a 360-degree hinge. These are questions we don't have the answers to currently, but that is a device that I'm hearing is in the works. So that, to me, is the more interesting Surface that's I've been hearing about that may be coming at some point next year. It will be probably, I don't know when, it could be early 2025. I don't think so. I think it'll probably be more middle or late 2025. And I also wonder if maybe this device will replace the Surface Go and the Surface Laptop Go, because the Surface Go has been AWOL for a while now. We've got a Surface Go 4 back in 2023, I want to say, but it was for commercial only, and that device has been basically out of stock for a while now. At least last time I checked, it was out of stock. The laptop, the Surface Go 3 has been discontinued, and that was the last consumer version of Surface Go. So we've only had a commercial Surface Go for over a year now, and so I'm wondering if whatever this 11-inch Surface is becomes the replacement for Surface Go, and maybe even replacement for Surface Laptop Go. As far as I'm aware, the Laptop Go never sold particularly well for Microsoft, unlike the Surface Go, which did. And so maybe this is combining those product lines into one. But then if it's supposed to be like a mini Surface Pro, how do you price it? It has to be cheaper than everything that they currently offer, right? So, yeah, this is going to be interesting. Dan, what do you think?
I know how, but I can't tell.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Part of it's going to be when it comes to the silicon, what they're running. I can tell you.
Plus, that's all I know.
Yeah, maybe. I could see another chip that
maybe,
can go in there that we haven't talked about. I'm going to say one interesting trend you're going to see in 2025. Buckle up. Laptops are going to get cheaper.
Yeah.
A lot of these companies are trying to push down the costs of these laptops while still maintaining a lot of its premium aspects, and a lot of it's coming down to the silicon and what options are available. I mean, if you think about it, what we see right now, I just mentioned Intel, AMD, and Qualcomm, and the amount of processors each has, and that's going to grow, coming into next year. It gives OEMs way more choice in terms of pricing, as well as competition drives down price, right? Yeah. But these companies there's a lot of new materials out there. Asus invented one, Ceraluminum, it's called. It's aluminum, and then they blast it with an enormous amount of electricity that turns it like in the atoms into plasma, and it's really like weird stuff. But so you're seeing a lot of experiments with that. There's just a lot of new materials they're using on the interiors, and so they're going to be able to drive down the price. But the thing I was just talking about, the processors, I think is going to be the key to keeping this price of this device down. I will also say I'm pretty excited about it. My SO, she just picked up the the iPad Mini, which I've always appreciated the Mini because it's although I was shocked
the last true iPad.
Yeah, I was shocked at how small it was. It's literally not too much bigger than the Fold 6 expanded.
Yeah, right.
It's like it's pretty crazy. As always, beautiful hardware. She's okay with it. She likes it. She's keeping it, but not blown away or loves it. She's upset it doesn't have their face recognition technology, so it uses a fingerprint scanner. She thinks that's lame. She says that the FaceTime crashes all the time on it. Like she can't use it for FaceTime, which is absurd. It's like one of the flagship things you do on this. But my point of all this is like there is a market. Some of us do want smaller tablets. I did let her try the one of the Samsung tablets. Granted, it was the Ultra. The Ultra is like 14 inches. And she immediately was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. So I think there's definitely a market for these smaller devices. And 11 inches is actually kind of cool because that does allow it to be small enough you can still use a pen and it make it comfortable for taking notes on it. And if they can keep the price down a bit while also not cheaping out, the problem with the Go series was always the processor. That was its only weakness, right? Was the CPUs on those things were not optimal, and that's going to be all changing for these OEMs in 2025. So I'm actually really excited about it. They can do that device. And I guess that, someone was asking a question like, when are they just going to get rid of all the Surfaces, when you're talking about the the Surface Studio. And the Pro series, Surface Pro and Surface Laptop actually do sell pretty well. Them refreshing it that many times in a year tells you something. They do have a lot of demand for commercial for these devices, which is maybe surprising. And Laptop Go and Surface Go are the same. Our company, Future, distributes Laptop Go as its laptop for employees, which is kind of sad, but it's true. So I think without Panos here, we've talked about this previously, you're going to see a more conservative Surface team, but they're going to be pushing hard on the product lines that really work for them and doubling down on that. And I think it's great. I don't know.
Yeah, to be clear, some people are talking about the Surface Go in the chat. I'm not saying the Surface Go is dead. I'm just saying that how the sources have described this 11-inch Surface to me is that it's a hybrid across the Surface Go and the Laptop Go. That doesn't mean the Surface Go itself is dead. They might do a Surface Go 5 at some point, maybe in 2025, maybe with the Snapdragon X Plus. Though the current X Plus requires fans, to my knowledge, and the Surface Go
It doesn't.
fanless. It doesn't require. Okay, so you could just underclock it.
I was literally talking with Qualcomm yesterday, getting just a little bit more detail on that. The TDP, which is the overall heat of the laptop you're making, it's not the voltage that goes to the chip. Everybody always confuses that. But both of those things are completely in control of the OEM, including whether or not they want to make it passively cooled, actively cooled, or even a sealed system. Granted, every time if you go to a sealed system, you have to have a way to keep it cool, and you down regulating the voltage and slowing down the clock speed is one way to do that. Or you can do it passively cooled, which just means you have vents on the system and you just allow the heat just to rise naturally. And Surface Pro and the Surface Go actually lend themselves naturally to that because of their orientation. But yeah, they OEMs can absolutely make these things fanless if they want to, or they can make them like 45 watt, blast them as hard as they want, put 2 fans in there, and really just, we see that with some of those laptops too. So they could make that fanless. Yeah.
Someone in the chat was also saying, won't the Laptop Studio be Arrow Lake, not Lunar Lake? And the reason why I don't believe it will be Arrow Lake is because of the NPU. The NPU on Arrow Lake, to my knowledge, is not 40 tops at minimum.
That's true.
And that's required for Copilot
Intel's new chips are weird.
Yeah, they are very strange.
They each have like weird weaknesses to them. Mm-hmm. I heard one yesterday, which I can't talk about, but I was actually really appreciative of the OEM explaining exactly why this chip wasn't used in this specific device. And when they explained it, it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. But it was like a lot of detail that most people would never know about. But Arrow Lake and Lunar Lake each have these weird kind of weaknesses. And Arrow Lake doesn't have a strong NPU on it. Yeah, it's weird.
Lunar Lake, though, should be fine for the Laptop Studio, I think, because you can pair it with NVIDIA GPUs, to my knowledge, right? I don't think you can't.
Yeah.
I don't see what... I mean, it will be an upgrade over the 13th gen Intel that we have in the Laptop Studio 2. And I guess that's all that matters if you're a Laptop Studio buyer. So, yeah.
It would get really good battery life. That device would be I would call it like a GPU-focused device.
Exactly. That's what the Laptop Studio sort of is these days, yeah.
Yeah, everything is, and for people who are creators, that's what really matters. So the GPU is going to get the most power. It'll be the most powerful part. The CPU will be powerful, but it's not, that's not the main purpose of it. Those kind of devices are better for CAD engineering type laptops that have like big beefy CPUs in them. But you don't really need that for what this laptop is designed for.
Yeah. So that basically rounds up all the things that I'm currently hearing is coming in 2025. That doesn't mean that's it. There could be surprises that I haven't heard about yet. There almost always is. But basically, to run it down, new Surface Laptop and Pro with Intel, basically just adding on to the Laptop 7 and Pro 11 with Intel options for those who need it. And then we're going to get, at some point, a Laptop Studio 3 with Intel, which will also be a Copilot Plus capable PC. We're getting, to my knowledge, a new 11-inch Surface of some kind that's apparently a hybrid between the Surface Go and the Laptop Go, perhaps replacing them or it being an addition to them. Who knows? But that will be constructed using premium materials and powered, as I hear, by a Snapdragon X Plus SoC. And there's also a new Surface Dock coming, but I have no idea what's new with it. All I want to know is, will they stick with USB-C or will they go back to Surface Connect? Because I feel like the Surface Thunderbolt 4 dock was an anomaly. Like that was an additional Surface dock, and then like a true Surface Dock 3 is still to come with a Surface Connect port. I think that's just a guess, but I would like them to stick with Surface Connect because I love it. I know I'm in the minority when I say that. I love Surface Connect. I think it's the best magnetic charging standard, it's not standard at all, but type of charging ever. It's better than MagSafe on the new Macs, in my opinion, but I guess that's just me. Dan, what are your thoughts on the lineup? Are there any surprises there? Is there anything you'd like to see that we haven't discussed?
Well, I mean, you mentioned the Pro 11 is still my favorite device. It's what I take everywhere. I always have these moments when I go to travel. I was just in New York, I was literally minutes going out the door, and I had an HP laptop and the Pro 11 next to each other, and I was trying to decide which one to take. That's like, I'm literally got to jump in my car in like 5 minutes, and that's how tough it is these days. But I always go with the Pro 11 just because I love it. But yeah, the only thing that would make it better for me, there's two things, but it's really just one thing. It's make the display anti-reflective, and they're finally going to do that because they did it in the Pro 10, but they didn't do it in the Pro 11, which was weird. And there is a 5G version for the Pro 11, but you can only get it in like black, I think, or something. And like I want a Pro 11 anti-reflective display, 5G and blue, like because the blue is the best color.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and the Pro 11-inch is something I'd be really interested in, because that to me is a more tablet focused device, right? So that could be really interesting. So let's bring up the question, when is the NVIDIA ARM64 chip for Windows coming? So this has been rumored for a while. And we know they're working, I think, with MediaTek, and I've talked about this before, how they're going to approach the market from the opposite end of Qualcomm. So instead of premium to budget ultrabook type laptops, it's going to be more gaming centric and high end, and coming in from that, where Qualcomm can't compete because of the GPU stuff, at least currently. I'm hearing now, I was thinking summer 2025. I'm hearing later than that.
Are they behind?
No, I can't say why.
Okay.
But because I gotta kind of verify it, but two, it changes everything we kind of know about the ARM situation.
Okay, good to know.
So yeah, I wouldn't expect that, but I could be wrong, but that's what I'm hearing. So
we're mostly always wrong on this podcast. People should know that by now.
That's technically true.
No, it's not.
It's a pretty good source, but yeah.
All right, yeah. So that's basically it for Surface. We can move on and talk about, I guess, this wasn't huge news, but it was a bit of a surprise. The Windows 365 Link, which was announced at Ignite earlier in November. So 365 Link sounds like a piece of software, right? Well, you're wrong. It's a device. It's a mini PC, but it's not any normal mini PC. It's a thin client, which means it's basically an empty box. It streams Windows from the cloud using Windows 365. It's in the name. This is an interesting one because if you take a look at the box, it looks like a mini Windows Dev Kit 2023. It's quite clearly designed by the Surface team, just not branded a Surface product. It has an Intel processor of an unnamed model, along with 8 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of storage. It's basically nothing. There's nothing going on in there, and that's because the box itself doesn't actually really run anything. It runs a lightweight version of Windows called Windows CPC, which as I understand, was codenamed Windows NXT, or Next, as I'm going to call it, which is probably not how they pronounce it internally. But why would you codename it NXT if it didn't mean something in the future? NXT is interesting, and because I've been hearing some stuff about NXT and sort of bigger plans for that as a version of Windows in the future. But let's talk about what it is right now. The version of Windows NXT that ships on the Windows 365 Link is a bare bones sort of lightweight edition of Windows. David Weston, Microsoft security guy, described it as a hardened version of Windows, and he said that because it's supposed to be super secure. The version of Windows on the device doesn't run any apps really. It only really handles the out-of-box experience and a login screen for your cloud PC. So it doesn't run any Windows apps. It's a much smaller image in general. It's supposed to update. Well, so this is where it gets weird, because NXT technically supports state separation, but to my knowledge, the version of NXT shipping on Windows 365 Link doesn't. Either way, it should have faster updates because Windows is just a lot smaller, so it can reboot quicker and stuff. Microsoft described it as booting in seconds and waking from sleep instantly, stuff like that. So if you think back to like the Windows 10X days, think of like that version of Windows being lightweight and then strip it back even more. It's even more lightweight now as a result. And so, yeah, that's super interesting that there's technically a new version of Windows running on this thing. But what NXT, the thing I find interesting is NXT is supposed to be a family of products, I've heard. And there's another edition, or multiple editions of NXT with varying levels of capabilities. And one of the versions of NXT that I've heard is in the works is a version that's supposed to compete with Chrome OS. And what I mean by that is unlike NXT on the Windows 365 Link, which basically has no local functionality at all, this other NXT edition, which I'll call NXT Plus, I don't know, that's literally just a name for it, has a local desktop, like a taskbar and a start interface and app windows, but it only runs web apps. So it runs Microsoft Edge and web apps, obviously through powered by Microsoft Edge. And that's it. It won't run any Windows apps, just like NXT on the 365 link. It doesn't run any Windows apps. The only way you can run Windows apps on it is if you stream them from the cloud. And as I understand it, is NXT Plus puts those streamed apps onto the NXT desktop, so you can sort of manipulate them, move them around your local desktop as if they were running natively, even though they're not. And this is supposed to, like I said, compete with Chrome OS. So it's designed for low end or like low cost devices. I don't know if there's a high end. Actually, there probably is a high end premium version of it as well, because I've also heard there's some AI play here. Like this version of NXT I've been hearing about. If you take a look at the new Copilot interface, that interface they were trying to build into a version of NXT, and that was like the desktop. So like a at a glance thing where you click and start and it shows you Copilot and it says stuff that you were recently doing, activities like documents and people you were talking to and stuff. And then you sort of manipulate the OS by asking the Copilot to do what you want it to do. That I think that's like more concept than reality. I think if this version of NXT that I'm talking about ends up shipping, it will look basically like Windows 11, just a more basic version. But yeah, you know how Satya Nadella has teased that the Copilot will one day become the start button? I think when he was teasing that, he was thinking of NXT Plus. I don't think that was just an idea he pulled out of thin air. I think he had been briefed on some idea, and my face has gone really small for some reason in the preview. I don't know why that's happened, but yeah. So that's what I'm hearing regarding NXT and the Windows 365 link. Dan, I mean, what are your thoughts on the 365 link as a device and as a category? Because Microsoft announced it as the first device of a new category of cloud PCs. What do you think that means, and where do you think that's going to go?
Yeah, I mean, edge computing, cloud computing, all this has been around for years. You mentioned thin clients have been around forever. They're easy to maintain and deploy. You know, people wonder, the experience isn't necessarily great up until this point. I only hear generally terrible things because of performance issues and latency and bandwidth and, you know, all this kind of stuff, which is constantly improving. But you know, people ask, you know, like, why would anyone want this? And first of all, obviously it's only for commercial purposes, but the main reason is for IT, it is way easier to maintain this as the software and have like dummy end clients than it is to have separate laptops with all this information local. This is also a big security thing, right? Because if someone loses a laptop and there's top secret stuff on there, or whether you're a corporation or government, you know, stuff can be hacked, right? The information is technically on that drive. It's just a matter of getting it. So when you have a cloud device, though, that you just turn it off and wipe it, right? There's nothing to do. There's nothing even to wipe, right? So I think, you know, the reason why it's also more affordable, another thing to consider, right? So there is a market for this stuff, and Microsoft believes it can sort of, I think, like Surface, you know, set the example for what this kind of device could be. Most thin clients we've seen up to this point have just been laptops, not a desktop situation. The desktop, though, kind of changes the game because obviously you can have these as static things in an office. And like I said, you get the benefits of reduced IT overhead and infrastructure, as well as reduced overall costs of deploying them, and plus enhanced security. So I think it's a good option. It's just the question of how well it works, I guess. So for that, we'll have to kind of wait and see.
Yeah. So the other thing that I heard about this NXT Plus edition, as I'm going to keep calling it, is because, so it, like I said, it runs web apps. It's entirely web-based. It's basically like a Chrome OS competitor. But when I mean it's web-based, I mean it's powered by web technology. The desktop interface has been built with web tech. It's rendered as a web view or like as a Microsoft Edge thing. It's entirely web. Everything is web based on this version of NXT. The whole point of it is that it's a sort of cloud connected / web based experience, because, you know, and we've talked about this before, Microsoft has data on this. Most people using Windows are using a browser and maybe an email client.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
everyone is
Yeah, it's
doing
over 50%.
yeah,
Yeah.
everyone's doing everything in the browser already. Why are we running this heavy operating system on all of these devices when most people don't need it? We can strip Windows back to the bare essentials that's needed to run Edge and WebView, and basically just build an OS experience around that. That's kind of what the goal of NXT is. And so, as Dan mentioned, well, as Dan was talking about, the cloud PC category is something Microsoft has announced. I think this cloud PC category will expand over the next year or so to be more functional on device, because right now the 365 link literally is just, it's a login screen to a cloud PC. But I think we're going to get hybrid devices as well, which are cloud PCs but with local functionality, and these will be mostly used in schools because, you know, students don't always have access to the internet, or it's not always easy to get access to the internet at school. And so these devices do need to have a local desktop interface to be able to manipulate windows and move them around and stuff. And that will be for that sort of audience. And this version of Windows will be that. And who knows, maybe that sort of AI sort of co-pilot vision that I briefly mentioned there ends up becoming reality, maybe even on full Windows. The idea, because Stevie Batish has even teased this, right? The idea that Copilot becomes an orchestrator of what you want to do. You basically go to the Copilot and you tell Copilot what you need to achieve, and Copilot brings apps and tools to you versus you going to find them and doing those tasks yourself. I think even Honor has already demoed its AI assistant, which can control apps for you. If you ask it to do something, it will be able to read your screen and press on buttons within the apps using AI to actually complete that task. Wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft is working on a similar thing for Copilot, where eventually you can ask it, hey, Copilot, can you blur this background in Photoshop for me? And even if Adobe hasn't added any support for that, Copilot can use AI and magic to look at the Photoshop window and go, sure, and then figure out where to click to actually achieve that goal. Again, this is high level conceptual stuff, but I know it's stuff Microsoft is talking about internally and wanting to do at some point. There have been some reports that Copilot hasn't lived up to the expectations internally at Microsoft, especially the new Copilot with the new UI. In fact, a lot of people have been saying it's a downgrade over the old one, which was a lot more. I think the old one definitely showcased the technical side of it more. Like, it was definitely more.
Well, it just had better features like bookmarking and sharing, and this kind of stuff. I personally like the new Copilot's look and design. I love the voices. Like, I think that core functionality is great, but they do need to add back features to it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I like the UI. I think it looks nice. I was never I wasn't a heavy Copilot user to begin with, but I can see why people think it's sort of been stripped back. It's kind of like what they did with Windows 11, right, versus Windows 10. They basically made it look really pretty, but they functionally regressed it as a result. And I think they've done the same with Copilot. And they did that because they wanted to make it more friendly, right? The whole point of the new Copilot was that they want people to chat to it like a real person, like your friend. Like, if you're going for a job interview or if you want to ask your crush out, you can ask your friend Copilot for advice. Now, I don't think anybody's using Copilot for that, but Microsoft seems to want people to do that, and that's what the new UI was all about. But I think a lot of power users have been burned by that decision to go down that path. So we'll see how that goes in the future. But yeah, I think, that report, I'm trying to think of who wrote that report. I can't remember now, but I also remember them saying, like, there's some worry internally now at Microsoft where, where's the return on investment? We've just spent the last 2 years, 3 years. When was Copilot launched? 2023 must have been, right? Yeah, the last 2 years we've been investing heavily in this technology, this Copilot, OpenAI. Where's the return on investment? When do we start making money? And that hasn't happened yet. And to be fair, I don't know if it will. I think this is supposed to be a loss leader for Microsoft, if anything. But as we know, loss leaders can't exist at Microsoft, because otherwise we'd still have Windows Phone and Surface Duo. But we do not anymore.
Yeah, the money aspect is certainly obviously interesting. That is the core functionality here, after all, is to make money, as for Microsoft at least. The problem right now, we all understand with AI, of course, is that there really isn't a killer function. Like, and AI is way more than just, generative chat stuff, which is primarily what people think of, or generating images, right? I know I never generate images. I just don't have that use. Even on I'm still using the S24 Ultra right now. I went back to that from the Fold. It's got those AI features. You take a photo and you can you do AI stuff. But I never use it. Maybe I will, but until there's some kind of really cool feature like for a while, I was paying for Copilot Pro Plus, or no, was it Copilot Pro? Got that. I was paying the $20 a month, and the reason I was doing it was because it was faster at the time. There were no delays when it would get a response and all this kind of stuff. But I've noticed now, like again, people take it for granted, but regular Copilot is super fast now. Like you ask it a question, there's no like wait line or anything like that. It's just like instant response. So, they still say you get improved speeds during peak times, but I haven't witnessed any displays. So that use was gone. And actually, I was using it a little bit in Word here and there, and it was kind of useful there, but I don't know if it was worth $20. And so that's what it comes down to. They're going to charge $20 a month, but they need to add kind of more value. Where it is right now, living in Office apps and some other things, it's expected, but it's not like kind of game changing yet. I swear, I showed you this screenshot before when I was going to do Copilot Pro again, and I was doing it through the web, and it showed a yearly option. You buy it advance in a year, and it was a reduced price, right? So instead of $20 a month, it came out to be like around between $17 and $18 a month, which was a little bit more, palatable. And Microsoft likes that idea, like all companies, because they can bank on that money at least for a year then. But yeah, there still needs to be something that's going to drive subscriptions. And then, of course, it's the issue of subscriptions themselves, which is people are getting subscription fatigue. There's already a lot to manage. So I don't know how you do that. For instance, they're going to build a lot of the stuff into Windows 11 at some point, or the next version of Windows. How do you monetize that aspect besides selling a license via new laptop or PC? So,
yeah. Right, let's see here. Do we have anything else? Let's move on to Windows Recall stuff. So obviously Windows Recall is now out in preview, and actually as of today, Microsoft has just rolled out the Recall preview to AMD and Intel powered Copilot Plus PCs as well.
That was fast.
Yeah, I was expecting to wait until next year, to be honest, but nope, it's already out in preview for basically all of the architectures now, and so that's pretty great. I've been using it on the Surface Laptop 7 since it dropped in preview a bit over a week ago now, or just about a week ago, and my impressions are it's amazing, and I think it's genuinely the first productive AI feature I've seen come to an operating system. It's one of those. Why my preview keeps changing? I don't know what's wrong with this. I've always been a fan of AI features that are invisible, and so this is one of those times where the feature just works in the background, and so it's always running, and it doesn't disturb you until you need it, and then you go in there and you find the thing you want. It's basically just a more powerful version of search, but as long as you've done the activity you're searching for on the device you're using. I've had some issues with it where it's like, because I have multiple devices, my recall timeline isn't consistent, because obviously I'm working across different things, so I forget which device I worked on, and recall's kind of sometimes useless in that regard, because there's no way to sync your recall data, and of course there isn't, because it's all about privacy, and had Microsoft included an option to sync data through the cloud, that would have been criticized incredibly. And so there's no syncing option. You can't sign in with a Microsoft account. It's really annoying for me, and I would totally be up for syncing my data across devices, but Microsoft doesn't offer that as an option. The other problem is that because Windows Hello now requires ESS, which is enhanced sign-in security, I believe that's what that's called, with Windows Hello, you can't. If you're using a Surface laptop with a dock connected to a monitor with a Windows Hello webcam, you can't use that webcam for Windows Hello, and that includes logging into Recall. You have to turn off ESS, but if you turn off ESS, then Recall, you can't use it. And so now I'm in this weird issue where I can't use the Hello peripheral on my monitor because Windows Recall requires Hello to be built into the device. But as a result, I can't get into Recall without typing a pin now, because my laptop lid's closed and I'm docked to a monitor. So it's really annoying. And I know ESS is there for security, and they've done this because of all the backlash and stuff. But a lot of the security additions they've made have actually made Recall a pain in the butt to use if you use it.
I heard this too. I was speaking with Rich Woods from XDA yesterday, and he said the exact same thing, that the Windows Hello interferes with the experience. I'll also say Windows Hello, as much as I love it, is slow comparatively to other devices. I don't know, Zach, have you heard anything about them trying to?
It is slow, yeah. Especially because it requires Windows Slow authentication every time you open it. That can take a minute to wake up the IR sensors. And then once it does recognize you, you have to hit OK manually. It doesn't just
Yeah,
authenticate you. So that's a
yeah.
pain in the butt as well.
It's
But
sort
yeah,
of
you're
like
right.
also in Edge when you want to check your passwords. You got to do that too. The Windows Hello will pop up, which is a cool feature, but it's like, oh, come on, this takes a long time. And I'm saying kind of comparatively to like even a fingerprint reader on your phone or even a facial recognition on like a Samsung or something like that. It's just a much faster experience to get into those systems. They should really focus on enhancing the speed. There's been absolutely no movement to my knowledge of Windows Hello at all. Like they haven't even changed the dialogue screen in forever. So I don't know what's going on there. But they need to figure out a way to make it faster.
Yeah, no, it's there are some teething issues with it for sure. And also once you even authenticate, it can also take a few seconds to actually show the timeline and stuff, so you can start scrolling back through it. So yeah, it's a little bit slow. Again, it's probably all the security stuff there, right? They put it in like an enclave, a secure enclave. It's VM now. It's like there's a whole load of encryption keys being exchanged.
Is this what you wanted?
Yeah, everyone complained, and so this is really cool. This is the reality now. It's slow and boring, but I actually really do like it. Like I said, it's one of those features that it's constantly working in the background. It's like a safety net because I wrote up a hands-on on this, and somebody replied, well, why don't you just work in Word? Word has like a last edited save feature. If Word crashes or whatever, you've still got that data. Yeah, and that's great for Word, but what if you're not working in Word? What if you're working in a CMS that doesn't have a backup option like ours? Or you're just sending a long message in WhatsApp or Telegram, and the app suddenly crashes, and you spent 5 minutes crafting this beautiful message to love your life, and now it's gone. Recall has it. Recall captured it. It's there. You can go back and you can get it. It doesn't matter.
I like it more for the idea of like the shopping, or basically if I saw something, I read an article, there was something I did, and I just remember a fragment of it, and that it can help me find that again, right? Because we have so much information coming in all the time. It's overwhelming, and then you forget those details. And I think that's where the value is, not so much as a auto save recovering, I mean, that's true. That could be used there too, but that's not how I'm planning to sort of leverage it.
Yeah, I think the best feature is it captures all of everyone's tweets. So if you click on a tweet and then they've deleted it later, you can be like, oh, I've still got it. I caught you in 4K. So that's going to be fun. And there's no longer are things deleted on. Well, I mean that's always been the case, right? Once it's on the internet, it's there forever, so they say. So Recall will make sure of that. And yeah, I'm glad it exists. Click to do, which is also sort of in preview. I've not had a chance to try the actual Click to do yet. They technically rolled it out last week, but it was like it wasn't really Click to do. It was like built into Recall. It wasn't the full thing. The actual Click to do, which is like you press the Windows key and hit the touchpad to actually bring up like a Google, how on Google phones you hold the bottom, it gives you that special screen.
Circle to search.
Yeah, they're doing that now, Click to do, and that's just rolled out as of today in the Insider program. So I'll give that a go, and I will report back. Well, I assume that's going to work fine as well. I mean, there's no reason why it won't. But yeah, that's basically it. Dan, have you had a chance to try Recall yourself or not?
No, I don't really play with the insider builds. I have one too many laptops to maintain sometimes. And I mentioned before, I use release preview on everything because that's just basically a beta version of Windows, which is what's more than beta. But the insider stuff, I just hate sometimes the idea of like, here's a new feature, and then it's like, oh, well, it turned out people didn't like it, so we're going to get rid of it and won't be. I don't know. I don't like the process of if I have to go back I want to go back to the shipping release, and so I don't bother. But I'm looking forward to try. I'm actually really excited about Recall. I think I could definitely make use of it. I'm curious about trying it, and it's an example at least of, well, what can I use my NPU for? And like, what good is AI? Like this would actually be a pretty good example of what it could be used for.
Yeah. Right, Dan, would you like to talk about Intel's recent CEO departure?
Well, I mean, just real quickly, yeah, the CEO, Pat Gelsinger, is leaving Intel, retiring. Of course, it's more in between the lines there. The rumor, and I think it kind of makes sense, is that he was being pushed out by the board, and the board gave him an ultimatum, like fall on your sword and retire, get a pension and all that kind of stuff, or we're going to vote no confidence and basically get him fired. Pat was in a tough position. Intel's obviously had a very rough last few months. There's still talk about them spinning off the foundry business, which is very different from the chip business. And I've made this distinction before. It's really the foundry business that's dragging them down at this point, because it requires so much investment and billions of dollars to build these things and to get them up and running. And then once they're up and running, to have them efficient. And so that is sort of dragging them down. But the long-term point of those is they do that, and then they become a maker of chips for other companies, basically like what TSMC does, so that Apple could go to Intel and be like, hey, we want you to make our chips. Samsung could do that too. Like anyone, Qualcomm could have their chips made there, right? So it's another competitive option. It also removes some of the danger of TSMC being just in Taiwan. With China, we don't know what can happen there. But when you look at the PC side and the chip side, it's actually done well, or it's been fine. It's there in the green. So there's a lot going on there. Just been some, questions on decisions and what to focus on, and was this the right strategy? And shoot, there was even the rumor that Qualcomm was interested in buying Intel, which is absurd. I don't know if that deal would have happened. I think it would have been a regulatory nightmare, but it would have been an interesting scenario. But yeah, so Pat's out, and hopefully Intel can kind of turn this stuff around, although I sense it's going to get maybe a little bit more bumpy. There's the CHIPS Act, which was passed under the Biden administration, which gave a lot of investment money to Intel, as well as other companies like AMD, to build these factories, these chip fabs in the United States, which employs Americans. It's good for security purposes. Don't forget, these companies don't just make chips for laptops, right? These chips are also used in everything from your car to your phones to weapons and necessary security things for the military and defense and all this kind of stuff. So there's a lot to it. The problem is some in Congress don't care for the CHIPS Act. And I forgot what Trump's stance is on it, but the consensus, or what's rumored, is that they may try to repeal the CHIPS Act, in which case that's a lot of money potentially that Intel would lose and would jeopardize a lot of these projects. And if that happens, I think the situation for Intel will only get worse. And I think they would be forced to sell their foundry stuff off, and probably TSMC would come in and buy it, and then we'd just be back to square one with that problem, and just make TSMC even stronger. So I don't know. I think competition's good. Hopefully they do find their way out of this. I think their laptop chips are getting really pretty good now. There was this concern with like, oh, ARM's going to blow them away for efficiency and all this kind of stuff, but Intel's new chips are pretty efficient. Like they're getting there. They're making a lot of progress, and at least they've been consistent with releasing a new chip every year, exactly on the dot. So they're doing well there, but yeah, it's kind of up in the air, and we'll have to see what the thing is. Whenever time you get a new CEO, unfortunately, especially one where the previous one was pushed out, like they can't come in and be like, all right, well, they laid off Pat or he retired, but I'm going to keep everything that Pat was doing. We're just going to keep going down that path. When new CEOs come in, whether it's a good situation or a bad situation, they all want to make waves and announce their presence and make changes, right? That's kind of the point of them. That's kind of like what Trump's doing, right? As he comes in as president, right? It's to get rid of all the previous bureaucracy and everything. So there could be potentially a lot of shutdown of divisions. There could be layoffs, so it's a little, if I was working for Intel, it's a little bit nerve wracking, I think, until that new CEO comes in, because they're going to come in with a new plan, and it's going to affect a lot of things. And they're going to make drastic cuts and changes, right? And because that's what the shareholders are going to want. They're going to want to see that. They're going to give us a plan. And unfortunately, one area to improve your profit margins or cut your losses is to remove, people from the company and to cut back on divisions and stuff like that. So we'll have to see what happens, but it's going to be kind of a rough time, I think, for Intel for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I'm just looking up this because that Lunar Lake, what I said about Lunar Lake and the Laptop Studio 3 may be wrong, because apparently the Lunar Lake doesn't support dedicated GPUs, which would mean it's a no-go for the Laptop Studio 3.
Oh.
Unless there's a newer version of Lunar Lake coming that next year, I don't know. I've heard it will be powered by Intel. I don't think it'll be AMD. So whatever Intel chip they go with, it will have to support dedicated GPUs. I don't know if Intel has a chip that supports both dedicated GPUs and high enough NPU for Copilot. So who knows what's going to happen there? I'll have to go back to my sources and figure out what.
I guess there's always the option of putting on a separate NPU. In fact, they could put on a separate one.
That's
and
a
make
great
it
point.
Super powerful. We just ran a story today. People have been asking about this, like, well, what about desktops and NPUs? And it's a good question. We don't really have much status on that. But this, mini PC we're in the process of reviewing from Lenovo has a discrete NPU for a PCI slot, and so it's separate. So we're starting to see that, right? So that you can do that, and I wouldn't be surprised. Microsoft could actually just make their own NPU, right? That is then put into certain devices, or they could put it in Surface devices, and even make the NPU even stronger. So I don't know. There's kind of a few options there, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's basically it for this week's rundown. Don't think there's any more stories.
There probably is that I'll forget about, but
as is the case every week.
Talk about it in 2 months.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if we want to wrap it up, we can do some quick Q&A with the audience, but otherwise, you can. We have to do the socials now. We should announce that we are on Blue Sky for all the people who have been switching away from Twitter or Threads or whatever social network they prefer. We are on Blue Sky. Just go to at Windows Central. Oh, yeah, it's just at windowscentral.com. We did get that updated. It is just our verified address now, so you know it's us. So again, at windowscentral.com on Blue Sky. Of course, at Windows Central on Twitter and Threads as well. And Zach and I on all three as well. So I'm at Daniel_Rubino on Twitter, and I think I'm on that on Threads. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm that on Threads. But when it comes to Blue Sky, it's just danielrubino.com. I do have mine tied to my domain. Zach has a weird domain for his Blue Sky. It's zac.onl.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Why?
Zac.online, but without the I and E bit.
That is corny.
Yes.
But it works. It's verified, I guess. And you can also follow him on Twitter and Threads at ZACBOWDEN. So there you go. But we'll try to make these podcasts again a little bit more regular going to 2025 as usual. But if there's breaking news, of course, we will do another quick podcast. But hopefully, as I teased at the beginning of this podcast, 2025 is going to be a really big year for laptops, PCs. Don't forget Windows 10 ending. So a lot of people are going to have to buy new PCs. A lot of people bought PCs during the pandemic. Those are now old, need to be replaced. And then we have all this new technology coming out. I'm really excited about what's coming next and can't wait to talk about it. I will mention CES January 6th-ish through the 10th is the dates for that. So we'll be there covering it, and there'll be a ton of announcements for gaming and consumer and everything you want there. So definitely pay attention to our coverage there, because there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.
Wonderful. So yeah, if there's any comments or questions, please throw them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them. We can hang around for a little while. Yeah, I tell you what, it would be interesting if the Laptop Studio 3 does end up AMD powered.
Yeah, that's definitely an option.
Strix Point is very good. Yeah,
there's a couple options there. Hawk Point too. Or Hawk, I forgot. I always forget AMD's name. Sorry, but AMD is definitely picking up steam. I'm seeing. It comes down to the options too, but they are being used, I would say, in a lot more laptops, and these new chips seem to be pretty good. And it would be throwing a bone to AMD from my
yeah.
How have you been?
Is that all the questions? Good.
Let's catch up with a friend. I was just like, literally nothing's changed in my life. My hair has grown in longer. That's the only thing that's different. Any news on using GPUs with their high ops count for AI functions on desktop PCs? No. Maybe we'll see something with, NVIDIA is announcing the rumor, announcing new GPUs at CES. Could those new GPUs be co-branded Copilot GPUs? Quite possibly. I could honestly see that as an option, but I don't know. It might not. It might do one of those things where it's not backwards compatible, even though technically it could probably run. Are foldables for Windows dead? Foldables as a category is interesting. It's definitely not as popular. I will say, I don't know if it's dead. Dual screen, there's still some dual screen. You'll see an updated dual screen device coming. It's still kicking around, but I think it's got to bake a little bit while. Zach, did you enjoy Penguin?
I don't know what that is.
That's a show on Max.
Oh no, I didn't see it.
I'm watching the new Jackal show, which is pretty good. The Day of the Jackal.
What did I watch recently? Oh, I've been watching a show that I've been really enjoying. Oh, I can't remember what it
We're
is.
also blasting through Silo.
Oh, I watched what's it called? It's called Invasion on Apple TV.
Oh yeah.
It's not for everyone. It has an actual passionate fan base of haters, to my knowledge. But I've enjoyed it. I think it's great. Why does my picture keep? I don't understand why this is happening. This is crazy. It just keeps making me.
Well, why is it not for everyone? Or you're saying that?
Because the stories can just sort of get a bit carried away. I think like I said, I personally I've been enjoying it. I like it quite a lot, but some people online, because it doesn't have a very high Rotten Tomato score to my knowledge, it's because some of the dialogue's a bit cheesy and the storylines sometimes don't make sense, and some things are just quite nonsensical. Like the characters do stuff that just doesn't make sense, and so people watching might be rolling their eyes a little bit. I think it's fine. I just looked past it and I just enjoyed it for what it is.
They did renew it for season 3.
They did, yes, they did, and people were shocked.
Yeah,
I mean, I think people watch it. So
57% on Rotten Tomatoes, but that's exactly what they said. Obviously, the numbers are there. So Silo has been pretty good. I like the mystery. The SO was. I've
been meaning to.
She was skeptical. She was just like, "This looks stupid. I don't want to watch it." And of course, now we're like hooked on it. So it's always.
Question: if Surface in 2 years would end up dead and discontinued for extraordinary mismanagerial reasons we all can't ever understand, which OEM do you think would be the closest to the Surface Vision and hardware? For me, it's a toss-up between Lenovo and HP.
But Dell has like some really radical designs.
Dell, I was going to say, but Dell, I don't know. I think Dell's in a different class, though. I don't think they're like Surface. I think Dell's different. I think Lenovo definitely are in regards to when Surface was more experimental. Lenovo has that.
That's true.
And HP, I really like HP's current Spectre designs. I think
They got
Oh
rid
no,
of
they're
the
not. They're
Spectrum
not. They're
ones.
gone now, aren't they? They're Omnibook, aren't they?
Yeah, they're Omnibooks.
And they're not as nice. Oh.
The new Ultra Flip is getting really good reviews.
Is it?
But it's very different from the classic Spectre.
Yeah.
But I hear that it's like nothing but good hardware. We are reviewing that. I'm not though. I get what you're saying. Lenovo is definitely the most. I said that before. Lenovo is the most experimental company. They just throw out products that are wild and different, and they know full well it's not going to like sell a ton, but they do it to basically get feedback from people, whether to see if they like it or not. HP does a little bit of that, but much to a lesser degree. Dell is extremely conservative. They're like, like I said, they will redesign an XPS laptop and it'll just be totally radical looking, but they'll keep that design for 5 years with just like a little bit of tweaks based on feedback here and there. And I like it. I mean, it works, right? XPS laptops always they still look like 5 years ahead of everybody else. But, they were slow at they don't really put 5G in a lot of their consumer laptops, right? I don't think on any. There's definitely none in the XPS line. So they don't bother with that. I've been, up until the XPS 13 with Qualcomm, they didn't touch ARM either. They did have that one Dell that they didn't tell anyone out about that kind of came out in the middle of the night. But I talked to them for years and they're like, it's just not ready. We're not there yet. It's the same thing with handheld gaming. They did Project UFO like in 2020, I think it was, maybe 2019. It was a handheld gaming thing, engineered with Intel, and never came out. Yet everybody else is releasing handheld gaming. Like, where's theirs, right? So yeah, Dell's very conservative. They're really interesting, but they do some really solid design. They put all their effort to get it right the first time, right? So,
yeah. Someone was asking, 18 core Snapdragon for the laptop studio or desktop. I don't know. I don't think laptop studio, only because I don't think that chip will be ready until.
Well, there is no 18 core.
Yeah, right? There was no 18 core. Yeah.
I mean, we don't know of one. I mean, they're only at 12 right now. I don't know if they'd jump from 12 to 18. Maybe. They could definitely scale up. We don't hear of, obviously, any plans about that, but it could definitely happen. I would expect them to go down first.
There's also the case of you need the dedicated GPU support, which Snapdragon.
Oh, yeah, right. That's a big problem.
Support, apparently. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of the issue is they got to be careful. If they scale up too much, the expectation is exactly that. It's like, all right, you gave me the fastest CPU. Where's my GPU for it, right?
Which wasn't the problem on Mac, because you don't really do much GPU intensive stuff on a Mac anyway. But PCs, that's.
But they have their GPU is actually really powerful. But they didn't focus on it really until the third and fourth.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say Qualcomm is basically doing that too. From what I understand, the first release was performance and efficiency for the CPU. And they said that specifically.
I know the CEO of Qualcomm is very interested in PC gaming and would like to be there. He has said that, I think, openly publicly as well. So,
yeah, I mean, handheld gaming just is a natural evolution for them, I think. It'll be a little while to get there. Do we have a device of the year that you would bestow? We do. We're actually in the process right now. I'm going to finish it tonight. Doing the best of awards for all these kind of categories. When it comes to laptop, I think it's really tough, honestly. Like I'm a huge Pro 11 fan, but I'm the first to acknowledge that that's a form factor that people just sometimes don't like.
It's just not a laptop. I'm sorry, it's not a laptop.
I'd be more likely to defer to like a laptop 7. Yes. But, HP's had some really nice devices. Lenovo's had quite a few. The Lenovo Yoga 9i has been great. So there's been a lot of good stuff out there. Dell XPS 14, I think, is incredible. It's a really interesting laptop.
As Dan mentioned, we're doing our votes for the best of each category right now. And best laptop currently in #1 position. Controversial. It's not the one I would have put there. I am disappointed in everyone on our team who chose that as the number one.
Luckily, I get final say anyway.
Oh, do you? Oh, please overrule it.
Oh yeah, this isn't a democracy. Those are
good.
basically your recommendations.
Yeah,
That's how I do that. I get final say on what everything should be, so I can override everybody.
Yeah. Please do, because it doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, but for me, like Pro 11 is just like it's basically everything I've ever wanted in the Surface Pro, and it's just been awesome to use. But
yeah, if you are a fan of the Surface Pro form factor, that two one with the kickstand and floppy keyboard, it's the best that there's ever been. It's fantastic. Yeah. However, if you like a laptop, don't buy a Surface Pro.
yeah.
Simple as.
And a laptop 7 is great for that.
Laptop is amazing. Yeah.
Does Molvad work on Surface Arm yet? So the issue here is I don't know what the hell Molvad is. So I can't tell.
You're not gonna just skip past that question.
Yeah, I know. I just thought I wanted to address it, but I don't know. You'll have to reach out to Molvad, I guess. Was it Asus who did that wild second screen on the keyboard half? Yes, they got good reviews too. Yeah, it's dual screens. Yeah, right. That's exactly that device. They got a lot of good feedback on it. Sorry. So.
Any news for Windows 365 for personal accounts or any other type of Windows Lite version or Core OS strip from the old system? No on all fronts, basically. There's a thing called Core PC, which is supposed to sort of allow Microsoft to build versions of Windows for desktop, unlike normal PCs that are a little bit lighter or like different capabilities and stuff and state separated. Don't know what's going on with that. It probably won't ever arrive at this point. There is NXT, as we discussed. That's technically the true lightweight version of Windows right now, super stripped back, but it doesn't really do anything. It just runs web apps, if that. Yeah. And in regards to Windows 365 for personal accounts, no, we know Microsoft wants to do it. We don't know when. It could be next year. That's just a guess. But I'm actually currently using shadow.tech to run this podcast, and that's basically like Windows 365, but using a third party, of course. 20 quid a month gets me my own personal cloud PC. Currently running Windows 10, annoyingly, and I don't think it supports Windows 11. But yeah, this is what the podcast is running off. Me and Dano joined into a group call with a third account, which is actually on the cloud PC, which is running OBS and all of the streaming software. And that's how. I mean, not that the laptop 7 can't do it. The laptop 7 can do it, but I just like having all this sort of nonsensey streamy stuff off my device because it's something I do once a week, or in the case of this year, once every couple of months. So I didn't really want it clogging up my laptop. So that's what my cloud PC is for, and I just use that because it's also got way faster internet than me. I only have 20 up. This has 100 up, so you can stream at high resolution and stuff. And if my PC crashes or whatever, the stream doesn't. The stream keeps going, and Dan will have to carry the show.
Getting back to the Molvad question, it is a VPN. Still never heard of it. My apologies. I have nothing to say. That said, private internet access, PIA, which is arguably one of the biggest ones out there, and I've used them before, really good, is now ARM compatible. Viscosity is another VPN, is ARM compatible. And there's one more. Sorry. Oh, yeah, NordVPN is also compatible with ARM. So you have other choices out there. I'm not sure why you like Molvad so much, but maybe take your money towards another company. I would go with PIA. I think they're really good, and they get some of the best reviews and ratings too, from my understand. So I would check them out. But yeah, that stuff is slowly coming online though. It's getting there.
Do you think there'll be more smaller laptop models going forward in the future now that ARM is finally practical? I mean, there's always been small laptops. You've always been able to get 10-inch, 11-inch laptops, but they're usually very low-end, cheap things like Intel Pentium or Celeron powered type things. It'll be the first time we get good performance in small laptops, assuming OEMs want to make them. They are very rare to find in the flagship space, unless it's a 2-in-1/tablet. Which is why this 11-inch Surface Pro is so interesting, because it's basically the size of a Surface Go, but with Snapdragon X Plus and perhaps a keyboard. This is the thing. I don't know what this 11-inch Surface Pro is. My dream, because I think my biggest issue with the Surface Pro, and I think most people's, is that it has this. Obviously, it requires a lot more leg room to actually be a good laptop. It's not even the fact that it's top heavy for me. It's that my legs just aren't long enough for it to comfortably sit on my lap as a laptop. They could fix that. The iPad Pro fixed it. The way the iPad Pro does their keyboard accessory allows it to not take up as much space on your lap. Obviously, it's a problem. The only reason the Surface Pro doesn't do that is because obviously the kickstand's built in. But what if you built a type cover with a stiff hinge that hooked onto the because it comes down to weight and stuff as well, right? If you look at the Surface Pro, the problem with if you just stuck a stiff hinge here, it would be too heavy. So when you pulled it all the way back, it would fall off your legs. So what you'd need to do is you'd need to attach it to the kickstand, which is what basically the iPad Pro does. So the type cover would be attached here, and that would allow the weight to sit forward. So you'd basically hold it like that, and my hand's the keyboard. It would be like that, if you get what I'm saying. That's what they need to do. They need to figure out a new Surface Pro keyboard that's a much harder, not a piece of carpet, and attaches to the kickstand rather than the base. If they can figure that out, then I might consider the Surface Pro a lappable product. But until they do that, it's not. And I'm wondering if maybe this 11-inch Surface will be that. That will be the first time they try that sort of design. That's just a guess, but that's kind of what I would like them to do in the future. What's this Windows NXT that you were just talking about? Scroll back through the podcast. We talked about it already. It's basically a web version of Windows that may or may not ever ship. Well, I mean, it is shipping on the Windows 365 link, but like a more advanced version probably won't ship. Surface Go, yeah, Surface Go for a long time was my favorite Surface because the Surface Go is actually, for that form factor, is great. You don't treat it like a laptop, you do treat it like a tablet. And yes, it does have a keyboard accessory, but that's like one of those, it's like, it's just nice to have, but you don't consider it a real laptop. It's just like a companion device. And that's what made the Surface Go great. And I would be the first to tell you, I've always said I would like a Surface Go with ARM. But now we're in 2024. I would like a Surface Go with ARM and 120 hertz, please, and OLED. Make a Surface Pro Mini. That's all we need. We need that. That's what the 11-inch Surface should be. It should be a Surface Pro Mini. Right, last call for questions, and then we will likely be heading off.
Sorry, someone brought up about OLED and Surface, and I'll just say that OLED still has issues. Screen burn-in is still a potential problem. Mm-hmm. I don't think for pen and inking, could be some issues there, at least for Microsoft in terms of what their standards are. Samsung kind of does this, so they could probably figure it out. They're also not nearly as power efficient as IPS. And so really, and plus they tend to drive up the cost. So there's all downsides to OLED. I get they look good. Personally speaking, I really don't prefer OLED. I have a few laptops with them. They're fine. They look good. They're definitely, the blacks are amazing. And I get it. But in terms of everyday use, I'm not, it's definitely not a feature I'm like, oh my God, I must have that. The current display technology has gotten really good. And you'll see some, one company announce a desktop monitor with IPS that, brings it closer to what OLED is, SES.
I know you just said that, but I want an OLED Surface laptop. I actually might write an editorial, basically just complaining about the Surface Laptop 7's display and why it's not as good as the Surface Books or the Surface Pros. I hate that it's just not as good. And I've said it about the Laptop Studio as well. The Laptop Studio's display, terrible in comparison to the Surface Pro and the Surface Book. I don't know why they've chosen to go down this path with this sort of.
I will say, you'll probably see more tandem OLED devices coming 2025, which gets around some problems and has some benefits to it too. OLED is superior screen tech. While screen burn is very much a non-issue now. You're full of shit. Sorry.
I will say my TV, which I've had since 2021.
My TV, literally, my LG C3 literally has burn-in.
Does it? Mine doesn't.
Yeah.
Mine's a CX.
And it's pretty bad.
Older.
And the pixel refresh, I've run it
doesn't work.
a dozen times. It has not done anything. So no, OLED is. I'll tell you this: get an Asus laptop with OLED. I have one right here. It's really nice, actually. It's a Swift S14 OLED, I think it's called. everything they do in that device is to preserve the OLED, the screen, and not to have a burn-in. They have apps that fade in the background. Almost all the companies do this, by the way. Lenovo has this too. They have the apps fade so that they don't cause burn-in. They disappear. Asus actually has like a screensaver that comes on. There's a lot of stuff that these companies put into their software that the only thing is to prevent screen burn-in and preserve the screen. So they're superior in terms of, like as someone said, eye candy. They look really nice at first. I would say after staring at them all day, if you use a computer for like productivity, I find them more, the contrast strains my eyes a lot more, but they do look great. And for some people, I want them to have that option. Absolutely. I think people should have that choice. And maybe for Surface, they should have that choice, right? But I wouldn't necessarily say I would prefer OLED. And in fact, I tend to prefer sometimes matte displays even. So
yeah, I'm not matte for me. I prefer.
And they're definitely not. Yeah, and OLED definitely is not nearly as power efficient as IPS. Like,
yeah,
they're just not.
For the kickstand ability issue, couldn't they rework the type cover to be a bit more like the Surface Book? Imagine the Surface Pro with a kickstand and an optional book hinge like keyboard. They could, but again, the issue there is the weight. The Surface Pro is just so heavy that if you were to open it all the way, it would basically fall off your legs. So is the Surface Pro heavier than the Surface Book screen? I think it might be, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is. They would need to either make the Surface Pro lighter, or, like I said, they'd have to attach the keyboard to the kickstand so that the weight is brought forward a bit, so it becomes less of an issue and it doesn't fall off your legs. That's what the iPad Pro does. If you look at the iPad Pro Magic Keyboard, it has a mini kickstand built into it, and it brings the screen forward, and that's so the weight of the device is forward as well, and it makes it more stable on your legs. What was I going to say? I was going to say something now, I've forgotten. Yeah, forgot. Gone. Never mind. It wasn't important. But yes, you're right. I would love to see like a Surface Book keyboard for the Surface Pro. If they did that, that'd be awesome, because I loved the Surface Book keyboard. It was so good. I loved it so much. Do you remember that? If you go back and look at a Surface Book 15-inch, Dan, have you noticed how tiny the trackpad looks on it? Looks like a trackpad for ants.
It's true. Yeah, they were very conservative with their touchpad sizes.
Yeah.
I will say, I've seen some for new laptops, and it's just like huge. But some of the companies are doing creative things with it, like putting gestures on the sides of the touchpads to make use of that extra space. So, yeah. Who wants a $3,000 laptop with IPS? Like, that's not an argument. I don't get it. One, some people prefer IPS. Like, you need to accept this fact that not everybody enjoys OLED. Number two, there's no advantage to OLED outside of it has deep blacks and high contrast. And some people prefer that look. And that's fine. I don't want to discourage them. I don't understand what your price tag has to do with it. IPS can do all sorts of things, including go super high resolutions, be anti-glare, be matte. They tend to be more color accurate. OLED sometimes has issues with that. So I don't get like why you view IPS as worse than OLED. OLED also, you can have issues with some of the backlighting issues here and there, and the screen burn-in and all this kind of stuff. So it's an option, and people should have that option. Read up. Okay. Like those people on the internet that are like, do your research. And like, you don't give me facts. You tell me. Don't tell me to read up. Like, that's ridiculous. Make your own argument.
I was going to say as well, you can get some IPS displays that are incredible. Like the book, again, I'm going to harp over about the book, but the book's display is amazing. It's almost OLED-like. The contrast is so good on it. It was so high resolution.
Display is incredible looking. Look at what Dell does with its ultra sharp series. I'm using a Dell one right now, 32-inch 4K. It's great. This is a $5,000 monitor that does its own color calibration. I have another one literally on the floor. It's a 32-inch 6K. These are used by graphic professionals. Graphic professionals do not use OLED. It's just fact. You also have ghosting issues with OLED, which is why for a while, you didn't see a lot of gaming laptops with OLED. They also had issues with trying to get high refresh, which was an issue. That stuff is starting to be solved, of course, which is good. But again, there needs to be options. And knowing that OLED's more expensive, like I keep mentioning this, like it drives up the cost of the device, which for a lot of laptop manufacturers and people who want to buy laptops is not always a thing that they want, right? So,
and there's also an issue with this. Sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, like, Dell, like, you can get the XPS 13 with an IPS panel, but you can upgrade it to OLED. But guess what? The OLED costs more, right? So, like, not everybody wants to spend a fortune on a laptop, and not everybody prefers OLED. So,
I will say, I've lost that as well. What's going on? I'm just so tired. I need to just sleep. Every time I try to say a word, I just forget what I'm about to say. Something about OLED. Oh yes, the Surface Pro's OLED is also weird as well. Specifically because you can see the the pen digitizer on top of it for some reason. If you look at the Pro 11's OLED screen, if you look closely, you can see like this sort of little pattern that goes across the screen. It doesn't look like pixels. It's hard to describe. It looks like
people were complaining about that. I have no issue with it. And yeah, by the way, I use the Pro 11.
You can't see it at a regular distance, but if you look close, you can see it. And I've never seen it on another device before. I've never seen that sort of issue on an OLED before until this device. And I don't know if that's because, well, no, it can't be, because the iPad Pro has OLED, right? And that has pen support, and no one complains about it there.
And Samsung uses OLED.
Yeah, I don't know what Microsoft did to that OLED.
Yeah.
They've ruined it.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, if you go research, for people who don't know, type in Pro 11 OLED, and people were making complaints about this, like mesh effect or something like that. It never bothered me. I never had issues with it.
Yeah, it's not a deal breaker, but it is. Once someone points it out to you and you look for it, you do see it.
Yeah. And again, I'm not against OLED. Like, I use the Pro 11 with OLED, so don't, I do like it. I'm just saying it's not for everyone, and there are trade-offs, including price and battery life, all this stuff.
Surface digitizer technology is different from almost everyone else. Has to be linked to this.
It's true.
I think what we can also say is surface digitizer technology is now the worst.
Yeah, I've been saying for years, Samsung's S Pen on its tablets and laptops is really good. Like, I love the feel of their S Pen, and I feel their technology and their displays, which isn't a surprise, are some of the best out there. But that's absolutely true. Microsoft does have everything is proprietary for their display, and they'll talk to you endlessly about how it's superior, why they did it. But at the end of the day, it's like for years I was like, why can't you make it anti-reflective? Well, we talk to our customers, and I'm like, I'm your customer. Like, but I don't know. They had some reasons why. They're like Apple, they give you a reason, like, they won't use it forever, and then one day they will. Like, we don't believe in Qi, we don't think wireless charging is there yet. We don't think it's that good. It doesn't meet our expectations. The brand new iPhone with wireless charging, right? It's like, come on. It happens all the time, and Microsoft falls into that. It's really annoying.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, but Surface has definitely fallen behind in regards to innovation when it comes to pen input. They were ahead of the curve for a little while with the Surface Pen and all that, and the Surface Dial, which was weird as well. But then obviously, because then there was that big announcement where they brought down the millisecond response time to something like 20 or something, or 19, something like that. I can't remember what it was. And then Apple literally like 2 weeks later announced their Apple Pen, which was lower than that. And then it feels like we haven't heard anything about Surface Pen technology since. Other than obviously when they did the Surface Slim Pen 2, which had the haptics in it, which to me is a gimmick. I don't think those haptics really changed much.
It has potential, but there needs to be a little bit more. I mean, Apple Pencil Pro has haptics too, right? So I think they're just
it does. Yeah, but they've got the air gestures and stuff now, don't they? And you can tap the pen for different functions and stuff, which is kind of cool, which the Surface Slim Pen doesn't do. You can technically track things with the Surface Slim Pen 2 above the screen, but there's nothing in Windows that takes advantage of that other than just hovering over things, which kind of useless.
Gustav's asking, does the OS even support pen input well as it used to be? Actually, the ability to use your pen as a primary input actually really has improved in Windows 11. Every dialog box, you can write in and it'll turn it into text, which you couldn't do before for a long time. I think, you could have done that in older versions, but no, they've actually, they have improved a lot of that. Could they do more? Possibly, yeah. Why doesn't Surface do more marketing? I feel like that's a primary problem always.
It's always been.
Used to. Yeah, well, at least in the US, they did run commercials. But I will say it's true. The Pro 11 and Laptop 7, I don't remember seeing commercials for those on TV.
I saw, and this is the first Microsoft ad I've seen on British TV in probably 5 years. A few weeks ago, I saw on primetime TV advert a Microsoft Copilot advert. It wasn't for the Surfaces specifically, but it was about Microsoft and Microsoft AI. And that, like I said, I was like, my God, Microsoft! I just saw a Microsoft ad on UK TV. That's never happened before.
Yeah, when you go to Best Buy, they have a whole section, and it's kind of like Copilot PC, like they're really trying to kind of push that. If your Surface Pen would be killed off, no. Not so long as it keeps Surface Pro. I mean, and we're just talking about them releasing a Surface Pro 11-inch, right? So that's going to be pen. So no, I don't think they'll get rid of the pen. They'll always kind of have it in some form.
Yeah, I do wonder, because I think the Surface Pro obviously is Microsoft's golden child, right? I don't think the Surface Pro can do any wrong. I think they'll always exist as an option for customers, and you can't take the pen away. And no one's done it
better than them.
No, it is the best 2-in-1. Yeah.
Yeah, HP's made them before, Lenovo's made them before, and they were cool. I didn't hate them, but there was something always about Surface that they just really kind of nailed everything. And
yeah, the Pro is the only Surface left, other than the Surface Go, that supports pen. But even the Surface Go technically doesn't support the new pen, even though it technically does. There's nowhere to store it.
Asus does have a Surface Pro-like device that's a gaming device, which is
that's right. Cool. Yeah, Asus. I tell you what, Asus are interesting these days as well. Was it Asus? Oh, yeah. No, it's Asus. Yeah, they're doing like dual screen laptops and stuff.
Asus has gotten their shit together. They are definitely one of the best companies to watch right now. Yeah. They're doing incredible stuff with design. They're getting more premium. Their speakers and cameras are getting better. That was always my issue. It would look like a cool laptop. The keyboard would be great. The display was always fantastic. And then you'd hear like the audio for a YouTube video, and you're like, ugh. But their audio, like actually on the Legion Go, their audio is surprisingly really good on that. So they're getting this stuff done. They're doing very innovative stuff as well. And like I said, you'll see more of that at CES. But yeah, their G14 laptop, the Zephyrus G14 that was announced at CES, has been a huge hit for them, really huge. And that's I think a good example of their kind of pinnacle of design at this point. But they're getting there. They're no Razer. They're not Microsoft. They're still behind on HP and Dell, but they're getting there, and they're doing some interesting things that offer advantages that those companies can't offer.
Yeah, I still want my Surface to do a foldable tablet. I don't think they will now. I think all of that sort of stuff's been scrapped since Panos left. But it would have been cool to see a foldable Surface.
I was going to mention that on the podcast. Do you think we'll live long enough and be at this job long enough for when they do a Surface event, and then all of a sudden Panos walks on stage?
He's back.
And he returns. Like Steve Jobs.
I think sadly not. I think Panos is so done. I think he left out of anger.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm done with you guys. I'm never coming back.
Well, they were gonna, Nadella won't be around forever,
True,
CEOs tend to stick around for about 10 years, max. So they get a new CEO and they're like, get Panos back. I don't care what it takes. He would come back.
Hey,
they're like,
they made me CEO. That'd be my first move. Get Panos on the phone.
We're bringing back phones for the third time. This time
that's the problem, though, isn't it? Like,
I know you even said you would never get a Microsoft.
I would feel terrible recommending anything phone-like from Microsoft again. Because like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Right? It's like, no, it's like the other way around. The point is like you can't. You can't do that again. You can't. If they were to cut, if they brought panels back and they gave him money to do another phone, the first thing Microsoft has to do is issue an apology. They have to. Like, listen, we know we messed up twice.
Yeah,
3 is the magic number, and we're gonna do it right this time. And they would have to do it properly and seriously. They can't just pretend that the last 2 times didn't happen. They'd have to acknowledge it.
It would have to require. We should save this for another podcast, but it would have to require a real revolution in technology where something fundamentally changed about phones.
Oh yeah. Like, and it would also have to. It would have to depend on a massive culture change at Microsoft, I think, as well. Like that.
Yeah.
Just in general, the current way Microsoft is sort of funded, I guess. I don't know whoever's dealing with the money and funding these teams, that they don't let creativity breathe. They don't allow for loss leaders. They don't let, if things are losing money, they're not allowed to exist. And that means you can't ever invest in something long term. Because sure, the first 2 versions might fail, but the 3rd or 4th version might not. That's the story of the Surface Pro, really, isn't it? The first 3 were crap, and then the 4th one was good, or the 3rd one was good.
The third got good, but the 4th was the one that like really was like, oh, this is it now.
And then somewhere between there and today, the Surface Pro became a mass market product for them. And so, like that's because they gave them a chance back then. These days they don't have the managers or the leaders who have that.
That's true.
Like vision to see ahead, and that needs to.
It could have gotten there with the Duo if they wanted.
I agree.
I
think they had our plan to do a whole line of phones. They had the Duo. They wanted to do a foldable. They wanted to do a single screen phone. They were going to have like Surface mobiles essentially. All killed because the Surface Duo 2 was a bad selling product, and it's just such a shame.
Yeah, despite the fact it was so much better than the first one.
I know, right? It's such a shame.
They addressed like so many of the main concerns. It wasn't perfect by far, but it was getting there. Like, yeah, I was using mine like a week or 2 ago, and I was just like, still like, damn, this thing is freaking awesome.
I use my Duo 1 as my work phone now, so I have all of my like Google stuff on there for work and Slack and whatnot. And every time I pick it up and answer emails on it, I'm just like, this phone is just so great. It's so future. It's nothing like it. It's just nothing like it.
Yeah.
Right. We should probably call it a night. Yeah. Thank you all for tuning in. Like I said, apologies for the podcast being so all over the place this year. I promise next year, starting in January, it will be back to a weekly schedule. I think since we're at CES, it won't be the first week. Let's have a look here. Hang on. My plan is to do these every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Or maybe 2 p.m. Eastern time. I need to get that finalized, but it will ideally be on Thursdays, and I assume the first episode will be on the 16th of Jan, and then from there it will be weekly going forward. We'll put a post on Windows Central when those details are finalized and stuff and whatnot. And it will be a rotating cast whenever Dan is not available. And we'll just do what we normally did, talk about the news of the week, and it should be fun. And hopefully we can build this podcast back up to being what it once was, because I realize we've lost a lot of our audience in the last year because of how few we've done. And for that, I apologize. All right. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you in